afternoon. Welcome to 6th edition of Tackle Talk Live. Wow. How about that? Every 2 weeks we've met here in the Galley of the Searcher and passed on some info that hopefully helps everybody. And so today's topic is going to be surface irons, and I have a rod that will be used for surface iron fishing. But before we get into that, we want to mention that we have taken one step closer to operating with the County Board of Supervisor meeting here today in San Diego County. It was voted in our favor to have a letter sent to Governor Newsom to open us up. And so that letter, I'm not sure what the timing is of that, but that's good news, one step closer. And so that may happen in the near future, we hope, so that we can get everybody out fishing. And so one step closer to operating, which we're very grateful for. We have all of our county health department plans in place and crew training, and we are going to do absolutely everything that we can to make sure that our customers and our crew is safe when they come fishing on the Searcher. So, good news. So the request recently was for the topic of surface irons, and so I have an assortment of different surface irons that are kind of tried and true, some of the old faithfuls, and there's some new lure manufacturers on the scene these days. So let's talk about that. I think that the kind of the standard bearer for surface iron fishing has been the Tady 45 blue, green, and white mackerel color. This has been on the scene now for, oh wow, 25, maybe 30 years, Tady 45. And so that's one of the surface lures that you have to have in your tackle box. And the next one that's tried and true is this Salas 7X, this sardine green and white color that has worked really, really well in the past. So Salas 7X. Remember, these are light lures now. They're not heavy lures like for yo-yo fishing where you're going to go to the bottom or you're going to go to depth. This is meant to be retrieved close to the surface. And so these two irons are, like I say, something that you should have in your tackle box. And then Tady C's, these are a little bit smaller than the Tady 45, you can see. Just a little bit smaller. And this is also a really good surface lure. So the crew and I were sitting around talking, and I said, so if you had $100 to spend in the tackle store for a surface iron, what would you go up in there and buy? And unanimously, you needed a Tady 45, you needed 7X, Salas 7X, and Tady C. So I brought a couple of those of each. And then this is a JRI 7. And the mold looks very similar to the old candy bar, which candy bars were, without a doubt, the lure that everybody sought to buy. Old candy bars were, you know, the vintage surface lure that everybody wanted to have in their tackle box. So this JRI 7, they make a JRI 4 that is a little bit bigger. So this green and yellow and white was attractive. It caught my eye when I went up there, so I guess it already worked. And so here's another one. This kind of, well, I guess you could call this seafoam, this color. But this color, this turquoise color, has been one of the lures that the color has worked really, really well in the past. So it's something to consider when you're purchasing one. And I would recommend that if you're going to go buy some surface irons, if you were to select one, you want to have, like for instance, this JRI 7. If this is the color that I'm looking for, I want to look at 5 of these, and I'm going to lay all 5 of them together, and I'm going to just look to see if there's any irregularities between the 5. Now they're all, you know, molded the same, and they probably pour a bunch of lures at the same time at this, you know, this size, this JRI 7. And so I'm going to inspect all 5 of them, and I'm going to see if there's one that's different, that has an irregularity to it. Now, I'm seeing something here in the paint job on this one. This one has a little sag in it right here. And so that caught my eye right off the bat. And so when you have a lure that has an irregularity, then maybe when it comes through the water, it has just a little extra kick to it, as we call it, or it swims a little different than the one that you just buy off the shelf. You know, here, let me have one of those turquoise JRI 7s, and the guy in the tackle store just picks the first one off the rack and sells it to you. So if you have the time to do that, look for something that has an irregularity to it. Now, I looked at this lure because this kind of scrambled egg lure for 7X is one that I've seen work really, really well in the past. And I looked at 6 of them up there, and this one right here, for whatever reason, there's 5 letters stamped into the lure. And I talked to RC at the Fisherman's Landing Tackle, and thanks again to Doug Kern and the boys up there for providing all this stuff that we do Tackle Talk Live with. But this one has these 5 letters stamped into it, in addition to the Salas 7X that, you know, identifies the lure. All the other ones didn't have these 5 letters stamped into it. Now, who knows why? But that's an irregularity, and maybe this jig swims a little bit different than the other 5. So, just based on that, I'm buying this one. And RC said to me, well, if you weren't going to buy it, I think maybe I'm going to buy it. I said, well, I'm not buying it. I'm just borrowing it. I'll make sure and bring it back up here, because he picked up on the same thing. There's an irregularity in the lure from all the other ones. Now, maybe Marty Salas would have an explanation for OGDER. Couldn't tell you what. But anyway, so that's a tip for selecting a lure. Just something that has an irregularity to it. Maybe in the molding there's a little notch at one end or the other, or just anything that looks out of the ordinary. And I'm going to pick that one, because that one, as it comes through the water, is going to do something different, and that might attract a yellowtail or a tuna to bite it over your standard 7X. So that's a tip about selecting lures. And remember, once again, these are light lures, and they're going to be close to the surface. So let's talk about technique a little bit. One thing about fishing a surface iron is, like we have one of these. This is a 10-foot Alua that's made by Seeker. It's a 10-foot rod, and there's usually a couple of these 10-foot rods up in the bow for anchored fishing structure, and the fish are up showing, boiling around on the surface. Then we want to have one of these up in the bow ready to go. So if we see some fish boiling around that's within our range, then we want to cast one of these surface lures out there. So a 9 to a 10-foot rod. 10 feet can be a little overwhelming for a beginner with surface lures. 1 foot shorter makes it a little easier to handle. But 9 or 10 foot, and the reason for the extra length is for extra distance in your casting. And so there's a ton of reels that you can put on this outfit, and they'll work. Accurate Products, Valiants, or the Boss series, the Penn Fathom 30 or 40, and you're using 40 to 30 to 60 pound test. I'm usually using 40, because with 40 pound test I can have a little bit snugger drag, and that helps with the whole setting of the hook process. So you notice that this outfit, this rod, doesn't have a reel seat on it. So you may ask, well, where do I put my reel? So the best way to explain it is you take the rod and you put it in the crook of your elbow, and then you extend so your forearm to the tip of your middle finger there, and that's where my reel is going to go. You see that right like that. That's kind of old school, but that's the way I was taught. You don't want it too high, because then when you catch a fish, then your you can't get your left hand in front of the reel in order to pull on the fish. And if it's too low, then you're not getting the action that you want when you're casting. It can be awkward to handle. So crook of your elbow to the tip of your middle finger, and within an inch either way of that is where you want to place your reel on your rod. So you're casting out, hopefully you're seeing some birds diving on the surface, whether they be terns or gulls. And the yellowtail is pushing bait up to the surface, and so the gull and the tern is taking advantage of that happening with the fish driving the bait up to the surface. So they're getting in on the feeding as well. And you're casting one of these surface irons in the vicinity of that. And so as you cast out, and one thing safety-wise that we always talk about with casting, whether you're casting a live bait, if you're casting a yo-yo lure, a wahoo bomb, if you're casting a surface iron, you want to look behind you when you're casting. You're not going to miss the ocean. That was the famous Bill Poole statement, was look behind you, because you're not going to miss the ocean. So you don't need to look out there. You need to look behind you when you're casting. And so you're casting out, and hopefully you don't get a backlash, and you're going to point the rod at the surface of the water, so that your lure stays in the water for a longer period of time. If your tip is up, then your lure will come out of the water, and then it won't be effective. So you either point it at the lure, or you can lower it towards the surface, and that way you get that surface lure with a slow retrieve. Generally, on whatever reel you're using, it's a slow retrieve, because you want that lure to swim. You want it to swim back and forth. And as you're winding your reel and your line back on, then that's what's going to create the action that this lure is made for. Another tip for everybody is you got to make sure that you focus on, obviously I'm looking at the lure, because I want to see that fish consume the lure. That's the whole thrill of it for me, is watching fish follow the lure and hopefully bite it, because it was appealing to them. But while you're winding in, you got to make sure and wind your line back and forth evenly on the spool, so that the next time you cast out, it goes out evenly, so that you don't get a backlash. So that's important. You don't want to just keep winding without guiding your line back and forth on the spool. So, and then hopefully if you get a bite, then you've heard us talk about winding through the bite with yo-yo lures. We've done that. We've done it with wahoo bombs, and it's all about winding through the bite. So you want to continue to turn the handle, and hopefully you have your drag set correctly before you cast a lure out there, so that your drag and the line going through the water and the bend in the rod is going to set the hook on that fish. So wind through the bite. Anytime you're using an artificial lure, then that's key to remember, to wind through the bite. So, I wonder if there's any questions out there.
Why do professional distance casters place the reel 6 to 10 inches from the butt of the rod? You want to show it?
6 to 10 inches? Professional casters. You got me. I don't know. 6 to 10 inches. The only thing I can think of is maybe leverage. I'm not sure. So, this is 18 inches, so, 6 to 10 is down here. I haven't seen that, so I'm not sure. 6 inches would be, I guess for me, would be unorthodox, and so that wouldn't feel comfortable in my hand. So I mentioned Bill Poole and his "You're Not Gonna Miss the Ocean," and just want to take a minute and talk about the 50th anniversary of this boat being launched on May 24th, which was a week ago Sunday. Celia and I did a little road trip and went up to Costa Mesa, and we found the block where Dittmar and Donaldson was established and built several sport fishing boats and yachts over the course of probably 25 or 30 years. And then we figured out that you're just going to make a right on Newport Boulevard and go down to Lido Island, and we found the Newport Harbor Shipyard, which is in the location of the Lido Shipyard, where the Cape Polaris was launched 50 years ago. And it was a great trip. It was great for us to go and check all that out. It was a great road trip. So we made that journey, and since that journey we have been in touch with Ingrid Poole, and we've gotten some articles out of her scrapbook that is on our website now of the actual launch. And the boat was pretty impressive looking back then. It's changed a little bit, but not too much. And maybe you've seen some photos. We've put the banner on the transom with the name Cape Polaris on it temporarily, just to pay homage to Bill and Ingrid for constructing this boat and putting it into service in the San Diego Long Range Fleet. And we're just very, very privileged to be owners, and it's great to think about 50 years of history of this boat being in service, and has certainly provided us with a wonderful career and a great living, and we're just blessed to be able to share it with all of our clients and all the Team Searcher family. So I wanted to mention that we're grateful to Bill and Ingrid, and we're also grateful to Frank Lopresti for giving me the opportunity at a very young age to take this boat over, and both him and Bill said to me, "See what you can do with it, kid." And here we are today. So, a question.
Are we changing the name back to Cape Polaris? Can we? Can we please?
No, we're not. The boat was the Cape Polaris for 5 years, and then it was changed to Searcher. So the legacy of this boat is the Searcher for 45 years. So, like I said, the name on the transom is temporary, and we will go back to Searcher here when we get up and running. We made that banner for Bill Poole's memorial. That was in 2009. It's hard to believe that was 11 years ago. We put after he passed, and for his memorial, when all the boats from the landings went out to spread his ashes offshore, we temporarily changed the name of the Searcher to Cape Polaris in memory of Bill.
So, back to surface iron, leader length, and what knot would you use to tie your lure on?
So I'm not using a leader. I have 40-pound test line, and I'm gonna do a double San Diego jam knot. And so that would be what I would tie, a double San Diego jam knot. I don't have my string.
What's
But
the
we
best
can-
budget surface iron setup?
Budget.
Yeah. And what's your favorite setup?
Well, I'm using 40-pound Iserline. I know that there's equivalent to Aluas that might be a little less expensive, a 9 or a 10-foot seeker rod. I'm sure that they would come out with something that is maybe a little bit more affordable than this top of the line. And you know, you don't necessarily need to have a 2-speed reel. You can have a Shimano Star Drag, or you can have a Valiant Star Drag. And Penn has several Star Drag. Shimano also has a Torium. So you can have a Star Drag single speed reel, and you know, the lures cost what they cost. I mean, retail out of Fisherman's Landing Tackle, they're $13 to $16, and you're going to have a few of them. So you could go with a single speed Star Drag reel and a 9-foot budget surface iron casting rod. And then, you know, it's not necessary to have spectra on that reel. You could just put straight monofilament, because you know, the line capacity is good enough that you could just wind straight monofilament on there, and that would save on expense as well. So 40-pound test, Star Drag reel, and you know, you can visit any Turner's Outdoorsman tackle store, and those people would be able to point you in a direction that, you know, if you don't have the budget for something like this, then there's plenty of options out there. Plenty of rod and reel manufacturers that would be affordable to have one of these outfits, so that you have it in your arsenal.
What line do you recommend for jig fishing, mono to braid to leader?
Well, we use Iserline. We use Iserline Spectra, and we use solid Spectra. The hollow Spectra is better for bigger fish. And once again, I'm not tying a leader on there. I'm just tying a San Diego jam knot, 40-pound test line. Some guys like to fish 30. It's a personal preference.
What's the best surface iron rod and reel combo?
The best? Well, boy, if you this Seeker Alua 10-footer is probably the. I know I'd buy one of these if I was into surface iron fishing. And you know, an accurate Boss 600 series with a 2-speed option, because I'm a little older and maybe a little softer, I guess you could say. So that I have the 2-speed option, so that when that fish gets straight up and down, you know, you can just put it in low and turn through, just wind it to the boat, put the rod on the rail, and turn the handle. So that might be, you know, the accurate Boss is a great casting reel. The Valiant is also a good one. Penn Fathom 30 or 40. You know, the Penn Fathom 40 narrow with 40-pound test is a great casting reel, and just because it's narrow, that shouldn't deter you, because it has plenty of line capacity for for a casting lure. And Shimano, you know, the Torium, and I think the Calcutta is another star drag. So there's a ton of options out there for the best, but I'm definitely going with a 10-foot rod and an Accurate Products, maybe Boss or Valiant, because they, you know, the free spool on those reels are just incredible, and you can cast a lure a long ways with it.
Would you suggest 100 feet of mono before your fluoro leader on a big tuna?
I would, yeah, 100 feet is probably, yeah, that gives you enough stretch. And that, yes, I would 100 feet of top shot before your fluorocarbon leader. Yes, I would recommend that for tuna fishing, yes.
Do you think that rod guides or rod guide tip makes a difference in distance casting?
I think it probably does. I know that the ceramic guides are very, very, you know, smooth and not very much resistance, but, you know, the standard metal guides that are out on the market now are fine, but I really don't think it makes that big a difference for casting. It's more the technique and practice to get more distance with your cast. As far as the boat is concerned, we're wrapping up a little project down below in compartments, and we're about to finish all the work inside, and we're going to move outside, and we're going to take care of the cosmetics, the rails, and we're going to polish the hull and the bulwarks, and we're going to start ramping up and getting ready for fish. We're going to put salt water in the fish holds, and we're going to turn the refrigeration on, and we're going to make sure that everything works so that when we do get the green light from the state, then we're going to be ready to start fishing. And we're very, very hopeful that within the next week or so that we're going to get that green light.
Fish reports?
You know, there's some sporadic fish reports from private boaters out there. There has been some boats that have done shakedown cruises where they've taken the crew out and they've ran all the refrigeration and all the air conditioning and their sonar and their depth sounder and their plotters, just to make sure that everything functions so that when we get the green light, we're going to be ready to go. So there's still a ton of bluefin tuna out there, and there are some 30-pound yellowfin tuna in the mix as well, mixed with the bluefin tuna, which is kind of one of the indicators that I understand people have been looking for. You know you're in the right spot if you see that yellowfin around. That's the area that you want to be. And it's still pretty close to home, to San Diego, anywhere from the 302 bank down to the Hidden Bank has been a productive area that the fish have been now for a few months. And so there have been private boaters that have been going out and getting bites on yummy flyers and catching fish up to 250, 300 pounds. So there's a bunch of those big ones out there. And so we're excited. Where we go.
What's the best way to sharpen a hook?
Well, there's a couple different ways you can have a fine find file that might be a little bit easier to handle so that you can sharpen each hook on the sides and the top. And then, you know, there's some pretty good hook sharpeners that are retail out there that you can purchase at your local tackle store that, you know, you can run that hook in there. The good thing about these hooks that these lure manufacturers make, these treble hooks, are pretty darn sharp to start out with. You know, we sharpen our hooks for wahoo fishing, but these surface lures have got great hooks on them, and they've got soldered rings, which are very, very strong and good quality. So when you're purchasing a yo-yo lure or a surface lure, it's ready to use right off the shelf.
What is your preferred knot for 20-pound fluorocarbon to the hook?
20 pound? I'm just using the standard improved clinch knot that we've talked about on multiple occasions now. You can use a San Diego jam knot, but just an improved clinch knot is good and strong for 20 pound and fast, easy to tie, and so I would tie an improved clinch knot.
Oh, is there a specific color that is a must-have for a surface iron?
Well, this Tady 45, this blue, green, and white kind of a mackerel, it simulates a Pacific greenback mackerel, has been, you know, kind of the standard bearer for surface lures. Everybody needs to have one of these. And then there's this green and white sardine colored Salas 7X that if you were just gonna buy a couple lures, then those two would be my picks. And you know, you can't forget the good old blue and white, just standard blue and white. This has got a little fluorescent green going to it, but those three. And you know, I picked these two because, you know, I've seen really good success on this turquoise color. So those four colors would be my picks. And, you know, and another tip, so if you have a fellow angler up on the bow using a surface iron and he's getting bites and you're not, you might take a look at what he's got. And hopefully you have something that matches it in your tackle box, or close to it. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but and hopefully you're the one that's getting bites and they're asking you what colored lure you have. And so those 3 or 4 colors are colors as must-haves.
If you're at the islands, do you use a 7X, 6X? What's the first color Tady lure you throw while at the island?
So I assume it's Coronado Islands, maybe, that we're talking about. So Tady 45, you know, that's probably the first one out that you're gonna tie on right off the bat. Like I said, it's proven. It's been the standard bearer for surface iron fishing for decades now. So one of these two, Tady 45 or Salas 7X. Those two are the standard bearers in my mind. So the next thing that I want to mention is that we have we've donated a spot on our 8-day trip in November on a limited load trip to Let's Talk Hookup for a grand prize. Pete and Rick are doing live remotes at Ford dealerships here over the next month. The first one is at Encinitas Ford on the 28th of 20th of June. So if you win the casting contest, I've been to one of those at Mossy Ford here in Pacific Beach, and it was so much fun because there was interaction with everybody. I got involved in the casting contest, and that was great. There's so many giveaways, and it's just great to be at one of the shows live. So these live remotes at the Ford dealerships are great, and so in order to qualify for one of those, in order to qualify, you can win the casting contest, or there's going to be a random drawing. So there's going to be 2 winners at each of the 4 live remotes, and then we'll draw one of those 8 winners, and the grand prize is a spot on an 8-day trip in November with us, and we're looking forward to getting out there. So listen up to Let's Talk Hookup on Saturday and Sunday, and Pete will promo that when it's going to happen on June 20th, I guess, at Encinitas Ford. And thanks to Rick and Pete for talking about our 50th anniversary, golden anniversary of the Searcher Cape Polaris. And we're grateful for their support. And we're grateful again for all of our sponsors, Seeker, Accurate Products, Penn, and Iserline, Owner Hooks, AFCO for providing us with face coverings for the crew. And thank you all for participating. If you want to book a reservation for a trip coming up in the near future, you can go to searchersportfishing.com, or you can call Celia and Callie in the office at 619-226-2403. Thank you all for allowing us to come into your lives there for a short period, and we'll stay in touch.
I'm going to show the banner.
Okay.